Hello, hello. I guess we're having a little audio input capture there. We got it fixed. How's it going? How's it going? We're over here into our historical content notice. The following program contains authentic, unedited material from various military eras and historical periods, including but not limited to World War II, Korean War, the Vietnam War, Cold War, Operation Desert Storm, and other conflicts throughout modern history. The material may include racial stereotypes, offensive depictions, graphic imagery, strong language, symbols of hate, propaganda, and historical viewpoints that reflect the attitudes, conflicts, and realities of their time. These materials are presented as originally produced without alteration or censorship for the purpose of historical preservation, education, commentary, and discussion. Mission 4938 does not endorse the views, language, or depictions shown in this content. Viewer discretion is advised. Alrighty, we are back. How's it going? How's it going? Caleb, DV, Recon Sarge, Historical Possum, how you doing? Uh, it was being on time is always a huge portion of it. We were fixing some technical difficulties since we were out on scene at the wall that heals. We were having some challenges today, so we're going to be covering a couple things today. Okay, so we are apparently still struggling with some audio input issues. Sorry there. How's it going? Yeah, being 15 minutes early is always a big part of being in the military. So we're going to be making up for that time. So we're coming up to Memorial Day. So what we're looking at here is honoring generations of service, the number of U.S. service members who have served since World War One, and it breaks it down by conflict there, so you can see. And again, Memorial Day is for the dead, not for the living. But we want to kind of cover a little bit of how many people have actually served in the military since World War One. Yeah, we're having a huge technical rebellion here, fighting against stuff. We were sitting up at the wall, and that kind of changed our setup a little bit here, and now we're back in normal business, and it's given us a little bit of challenge. So let's go through and take a look at some of this stuff. One of the other ones we're looking at is U.S. military humanitarian missions since World War One. So everybody thinks about the war conflicts and what we do in military capacities of attacking or defending the country. They don't think about the fact that U.S. military does more humanitarian missions than any other military. That's 20 humanitarian missions every year. That's going in Operation Damian in the Philippines, going into Haiti, going into all these countries when they're having massive human tolls coming across. Since World War One, we've engaged in over 1,205 humanitarian and aid missions in more than 150 countries. So you can kind of see there a little bit of a reflection on it. Are we going to talk about how both sides abuse POWs and Vietnamese civilians? In this, we are not. We're going to be getting back into Vietnam stuff here in a few weeks. But right now, what we're covering is we're going to do the breakdown of how it went at the wall, and then we're also going to be looking at some stuff leading into Memorial Day, and we're going to kick it off at the very end with some private snafu censorship. So, kind of what we're looking at here again: breakdown of humanitarian aid. Does that mean the League of Nations UN missions to America has been on since World War II? No, this is, well, it includes some of those, but it also includes other missions that were just solo operations. The United States military has some unique things. One of them is we have two naval ships, the Comfort and the Mercy, which are just hospital ships. They're not meant for necessarily conflict. They're going into countries that are having huge humanitarian crises as well. We have response teams for that just the same. So you can kind of see some of the breakdowns there. So the military isn't just about attacking and defending the country. It's also about going in and making the best good that it can. So that's some of the things we're looking at. We're going to be leading up into Memorial Day this upcoming Monday. So we'll be kicking that off again, talking a little bit more about this stuff on our next watch along stream, and kind of covering what makes Memorial Day special and going into Armistice Day and things like that. Now we're going to do a little bit of breakdown of the wall coming in. So the wall came in. They have this nice little memorial here. It's for all those that died from exposures and injuries during Vietnam, or they died after they came home from Vietnam. Nice little plaque here they have set up. The Gold Star bike. The bike is covered in names like the wall is, and it was donated by Gold Star families. It just brought out, it doesn't actually drive. They've made it inoperable. It's just there to be kind of a showcase and talk about Gold Star families and get the discussion started. Then we're looking over here. This is the Hmong people. Everyone that's in uniform actually fought during what is called the Invisible War. So breaking up the Ho Chi Minh Trail, going and defending the radar domes in Laos, and also freeing MIAs or POWs in Vietnam and in Laos, along with going through and rescuing down helicopters and planes and saving those people and getting them out. So all the people in fatigues are actually from the conflict. One of the guys was engaged in the conflict when he was 12 years old and going through and trying to help free service members and rescue down pilots. So we got to bring them up to the wall. They're mainly paid by employed by the CIA and during the Invisible War. They're kind of like the Kurds. If you know the Kurds from the Middle East, they're kind of like the Kurds of the Southeast. They don't have a country of their own, and a lot of times are persecuted by every other group around them. And so the Laotians, or the Laotians, were also trying to go through a little bit of a communist revolution, and it was jeopardizing the Hmong people. So it's nice that we got them out and honored them. Here we're looking at some of their granddaughters, and one of them is great-granddaughter, all dressed up in cultural clothing, and they did some cultural dances at the wall. To the far, I don't know which side it would be on your guys' screen. On my screen, it's right. On your screen, it may be left. The very far end is Miss Hmong International, who came out to honor her Hmong people. And then you have some other of their cultural ambassadors with them. This is the wall that hills when it comes in. This is the trailer it's on. This is what you see coming down the road as it's going from one place to another. And here's a picture of the wall at night. It is absolutely strikingly beautiful. And we had a conversation with a lady who said that it was strikingly beautiful and utterly terrifying. Because you got to think all of the names on that wall are people who were killed while in Vietnam. Cambodia is also Communist Revolution, and that was the government. It was. The Cambodian government was absolutely apocalyptic. Through that whole area during Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, they all were experiencing some level of communist uprising, and most of them, Cambodia, I think, was Pol Pot. Absolutely horrific. But again, the wall, utterly beautiful and absolutely terrifying when you think of the just immense number of names. And if you look at the size of it, we'll go back one, go back two. So this is them at the wall. They're actually probably about 30 feet out from the wall, and that's just a small portion of the wall behind them. And so you got to think each plate of those has names on it. So while we had it here, we got to upload some stories, and we'll be uploading them throughout the week. So what you're going to be seeing as we're uploading are shorts and videos of interviews with service members. I think that is the plan to continue on over the next year, 2 years of doing these interviews with service members. We have a couple really good ones up right now. One is Eddie Beasley. Eddie Beasley joined the Marine Corps when he was 17 years old, and he talks about going to Vietnam. And then, unfortunately, he lost both of his legs to a mine explosion. And during he talks about it. He talks about what happened, losing his legs in Vietnam and the horrific explosion and everything that went along with that. So check that out as well. There's a lot of really neat interviews. We have Joe Haynes up as well, who's talking about why he joined the military, and it involves his father, who was a World War II veteran and a Korean War veteran. So check those out. These stories are very, very off the cuff. We talked to him. We sat down. We didn't write out a script or anything else. We sat down and said, "Let's tell us a story from when you're in service, or give us why you joined the service." And so you're going to be seeing more and more of that as we go on. So we're going to be highlighting their stories and highlighting veteran voices over the next year or so. So again, we're just getting back into the kick of it. So we are going to do a video we've previously done, but the audio messed up so bad that you couldn't actually hear the video. So we're going to be doing a special one. Just out of curiosity, are you going to do interviews with Vietnamese soldiers that fought the Viet Cong? Because it would be fascinating to hear the therapist, to hear a therapist's perspective. Are we going to do Vietnam soldiers that fought for the Viet Cong? We don't really have any Viet Cong in our area to do interviews with. And again, we're not focusing on one era. So you're going to hear stories from soldiers. We have a Korean War soldier who's going to be telling us his story. We have soldiers that fought in Vietnam, but we have soldiers that fought or that were in the Cold War. We have Iraq, Afghanistan, all kinds of different stories. So you're going to be hearing a lot of different stories from different perspectives, and any perspective we can get, we will try to get. One of them that we're going to be working on is getting some Native American perspectives because they served in the military in a larger capacity than anyone else. But any stories we can get, we are going to try to get. But we are going to do Censorship by Private Snafu. We've done it previously, but the audio was so bad that you couldn't actually understand it. We found a better copy, and we're going to be covering that one. Kind of a little lighthearted jump through tonight. Private Snafu, Censorship, and we're off in 3, 2, 1. This film will not be shown to the general public without permission of the War Department. So again, film was used to train service members, not for the general public. So when you think about this was being shown to people that were already in as a way of kind of communicating something that they thought would be better communicated through a cartoon than through setting through a PowerPoint. So
Dear Sally Lou, this is it. They'll be shipping us out soon. From the equipment, it looks like the South Pacific. This is confidential. So I'm sneaking this past the censor. We're on our way to the port of...
So what you're seeing there, the censors were very notorious for cutting things out during World War II, but that was done for a purpose, because you got to think anything that goes out could be picked up by anybody else, and it could be turned around to be used against those troops, especially as they're doing movements and things like that. I understand that they used cartoons in World War II because the good number of soldiers couldn't read. But why are they still using cartoons? They don't use cartoons anymore. I deeply wish they would. Now I know for the Navy, there's a thing called Navy Knowledge Online, NKO. I believe there's an AKO for the Army. And it's a lot of computer-based training now that is very boring and dry. But again, you kind of, from this, the whole point was to use humor. And it's easier to get someone to pay attention if something is humorous and is kind of engaging. And they learned that from, look at school age stuff now. If you have something that can be somewhat humorous and engaging, kids will learn it and repeat it and know it. But when you're using dry material, people just get through it as fast as they can. And so these were things that they could do. One, it would raise morale. because some of these people had never seen a movie or anything before. They enlisted in the military or were drafted into the military. But the other thing about them is this will stick with you. You'll laugh about it later on. Oh, did you remember where in that show this happened or that happened? So this was a really good way of engaging with them in a different kind of light.
Embarkation. They gave us shots for tropical diseases, so I know it's the South Pacific. Hey, Bud! Mail this for me! And can afford the terrible one.
You absolutely would get court-martialed if you got caught trying to sneak past the censor. That was considered a pretty grave offense, and again, it's because a lot of people don't know this. One of the ways they broke the German ability to get messages and their decoding was because somebody was sending out messages to their loved one, and they knew that there'd be certain words in. I think they've made a couple movies about them, about breaking Enigma, but that's how they end up breaking through some of these codes, was finding those. But then these unrestricted mail, I mean, think of how many times it's come back to bite people in the backside throughout history. This isn't just a new thing with the United States military. You're looking at the Civil War, some messages that were picked up from one mail carrier and delivered to the other opposing side, gave them an advantage in a conflict. You're looking at, even in Rome, several times somebody would be sending correspondence would be picked up, and then the Roman legion would either, especially when it was internal fights, would be able to take each other out in unexpected areas because, oh, well, we put out how many men we had and the morale's low and we have several sick, and next thing you know, our enemy's pouncing upon us. And how did they know all this information? Well, through this. And that's why the censorship was such a big deal. That's the whole loose lips sink ships thing. They didn't want to get things out, and there were so many hidden things going on during World War II. You're looking at fake launch points that were going to go into Europe. I think Historic Opossum has a favorite story about the inflatable army that was built in Oklahoma, that was shipped over to England as kind of a fake out for the Germans. And had one letter gotten out that kind of exposed that, hey, we have a fake army landing here, I mean, that defeats the entire purpose. You have millions of dollars you just wash down the drain because somebody leaked something through a censor.
Is there a postman in the house? Technical Ferry, first class, at your service. You gotta get this to Sally Lou. But have you forgotten the censor? It's okay. We got a private code. Well, if you insist. But I'll hate myself in the morning. Now I can fight in peace.
Oh, Mother, guess what? My snafu in a big surprise move. Bingo Bango Island. Big surprise. Don't tell us soon.
Bingo Bango.
A big surprise.
Don't tell.
Big move.
Keep this to yourself, but...
Yes, a surprise.
And isn't that how it always works? You have a big surprise, and you tell one person, don't tell a soul, and then it passes on like a bad game of telephone, and then it eventually gets back to where you don't want it to be. So that is the other big thing with the censors. Is I was on a ship that was supposed to pull into a port, and someone told their spouse when we were getting there, and their spouse told a few people. And next thing you know, it was on the news. Hey, the U.S. Carrier, U.S. battleship, or one of the ships is getting ready to pull into this port on this day. They should be there about this time, and it ended up canceling the entire port visit. That person was court-martialed, and was a lot less than popular because it was a fairly popular port that we were going into. But that's the kind of thing that gets ruined by that, because all it takes is one person knowing in advance, like the USS Cole, and being able to place a bomb or being able to place a package out and destroying a ship. And it doesn't take much to do. And so that's where the censorship comes in. And that's why it's such a big deal. I mean, if Watergate told us anything, it's not even the U.S. government. That is exactly right. Not even the U.S. government can keep a secret. A chunk of the military men that were involved in setting up came back to Oklahoma and helped establish one of the posts here. Yeah, they did. They did. Say, historic opossum, what crazy about this is that the service member is that they were civilians involved in Hollywood and were actors, costume designers, artists. That is crazy. All of them were involved in Hollywood that helped build that stuff. It absolutely insane. If you get a chance, maybe we'll go through and cover it on one of our watch-alongs and kind of go into depth about the fake army off of England.
What we're looking for. Like I always said, every man his own censor. Looks very good. On the whole, yeah.
So there again, we're kind of looking at Private Snafu, Tex Avery, Chuck Jones, and a lot of other great artists went into making those videos to educate service members, and that went on censorship and how important it was. And kind of one of the things that we look at here during Vietnam, that was also a very important thing. OPSEC was so critically important because troop movements would get disclosed and the Viet Cong could surprise them and end up taking them by complete total surprise, causing the death of service members at an untold rate. And so as we're going through and getting close to this Memorial Day, we kind of get a special moment of reflection. I'm going to give you a couple of the stories that we were getting from the wall while we were there. One was there's not supposed to be chairs or anything up towards the wall because they're afraid that somebody might scratch the wall or whatever. And so while we were there, we witnessed one night a older woman in her 70s dragging a chair up to the wall. So I went up there to ask what's going on. By the time I got there, she'd already set up. And she was sitting there and talking about how you should see your grandson. He looks just like you. You'd be so proud of your son and what he's doing. And when we asked her what was going on, her husband was killed in Vietnam. She had never remarried. And there wasn't enough remains brought back for him to be buried, or there wasn't remains brought back for him to be buried here in the United States. And so up until a couple years ago, she had traveled twice a year to the wall in Washington, D.C., so she could sit and talk to at least the place on the wall that her husband's name was. And she had gotten into some poorer health where she could not do that anymore, but she could at least come out to the wall while it was visiting in Edmond and get that chance to kind of talk about her grandson and her son and kind of get a moment of being able to decompress with her husband who had lost his life in Vietnam. Kind of one of those I'm not crying, you're crying moments. And then we had another Vietnam veteran whose brother's picture was actually displayed on the wall. His brother was killed in Vietnam, and he got to stand there and look at a picture of his brother, and reflect on his brother who he loved absolutely dearly. And I imagine there's a little bit of pain, a little bit of grief. At the same time, there's some relief and happiness from it. And getting up there and seeing a child of a former POW who became an MIA. They were given wristbands to wear, and this child had worn the wristband for 50 years, and being able to walk up to the wall and see that his dad had not been forgotten, and his dad's name was etched there for people to see all across the country and in DC, and know that his father's name would not be forgotten, and what his father sacrificed would not be forgotten. He was finally able to take that wristband off after 50 years and leave it at the wall, and felt like he could continue on with his life, knowing that his father wouldn't be forgotten. And so watching some of these interactions and watching grandkids up at the wall taking etchings of their grandfathers, and watching brothers come and be able to see their brothers and sisters come and be able to see their brothers' names. It was such a powerful, moving experience this week. I was very blessed to have been able to experience so much of what was going on and so much of the healing. And everyone, I think, that showed up to the wall got to see a little bit of that. It was definitely not an easy experience this week. But I think it was well worth it for anyone who put in some blood, sweat, and tears up there to get it all up and get it displayed. And just being able to take a moment out during that. Thank you again to Historic Opossum for setting up, and Recon Sarge for being able to perform an absolutely beautiful MIA ceremony, honoring those that did not return, and some who may never return be able to be honored and recognized, so that way their sacrifice doesn't go forgotten. I know definitely is something I'll be carrying with me this Memorial Day, kind of some of the experiences that we had. Also watching some of these older veterans come alive and share stories that they've never shared for the first time. And some of them coming up to the wall and absolutely breaking down after years of holding in pain and grief. It really was something that is hard to be able to express into words and understand exactly what was going on. I know Mission 4938 and VFW 4938 is already planning for our next events. From Wreaths Across America, where we lay wreaths on the graves of service members who have passed away, to a couple other big special things that we have planned in there. And again, we're not doing a super long episode today. We're still recovering. I think anybody that went up there and spent any length of time either putting the wall up itself, or being there to install the lights, or working on the trailer, and some pretty unforgiving wind. We got to take some New Yorkers and let them experience what Oklahoma wind is all about. And the Oklahoma wind did not disappoint during this whole thing. So we're going to be continuing to do things like that. Check out some of the stuff we have. We've posted a lot of pictures up there. We've posted some really great videos and some different things that have happened. We're going to continue doing that through this week. But we appreciate all of you guys' support and understanding on us taking a week off so we can address this and spend our time and focus on making sure we honor those who have given so much. I know one of the harder parts was just watching the families of those who have names on the wall, and hearing their stories, hearing the stories of a sister who her brother was her entire world, taught her to ride a bike, and was just really an awesome person in her life. And then her losing him in Vietnam, and for her to be able to carry the panel with his name on it and be able to be there and honor him and share stories of him before service. Because it wasn't just a service member's life it was snuffed out. It was a civilian. It was a bigger brother. It was somebody who would become an uncle that was taken away. And so experiencing that and being able to have that time to kind of not just, oh, these are service members who have passed, but they're people, they're brothers, their fathers, they're now grandfathers who never got to meet their grandchildren, or fathers who never really got to meet their children. And then experiencing with some who did come back, some who came back with some various obvious scars of war, and some that came back with some less so obvious scars of war, but still scarred nonetheless. And be able to sit with them and talk with them and see what kind of really ignites the fire in them, and then see how they've had such a massive effect later on. Because one of the things that got talked about was most of them have remembered the fall of Saigon, and so they were there for another generation of warriors and soldiers for the fall of Kabul, and being able to share the same feeling and empathy and grief. This was something that I don't think I will ever forget. I don't think anybody that got a chance to be there will ever forget. If you get a chance to go and experience either the wall in DC or the traveling wall while it's there, I encourage you to go. One, to experience the wall and be there to kind of soak that in, but also soak in all the stories that are going along around the wall. They may not be stories that you're part of, but there are so many people that were sharing their experiences. And it was such a unique thing that I don't think, like I said, I don't think I'll ever forget it. But we will be back with a more typical watch along series on Thursday. I think Recon Sarge, if he is recovered from this enough, will be back on Wednesday for some Fallout Wednesday. We should be getting close to the main storyline, I believe, of Fallout 4. And like I said, we're going to keep driving forward, and we encourage you all this week, kind of take some time, focus up on Memorial Day. I know for a lot of people, it's an extra day off work. It's a day to go out and grill and barbecue and spend time with loved ones. But there are some out there that, while we can enjoy and celebrate on Memorial Day to have the day off and have a day to grill and hang out with family, there are some that grieve loved ones and grieve those that gave their lives. And so for them, the Memorial Day will not necessarily be filled with joy, but be filled with grief. And try to keep those people in mind as we go into the Memorial Day weekend. Not trying to be a buzzkill or anything, but we will be back tomorrow with Recon Sarge on Fallout 4, and we will be back with a regular watch along. I'm thinking we will do a movie. We've not done a movie in a while. We've not done anything long form that way in a while. So maybe we'll do a movie this coming Thursday. So have your popcorn ready, and of course your Baja Blast Mountain Dew, and we will kick off into a movie this upcoming Thursday. So until then, stay strong, stay true, stay Frankie. We will see you on the next one, and we appreciate you being here. Have a good one.
And now, our national anthem.